let's go to Dan in Denver. Dan, you have to have a family question or you can't be on the show today.
I do have a family question. Yes! It's a pretty good one, I think.
Hey, well done, Dan. Way to go, man. So what's up?
Yeah, so my mother and father-in-law, they've been going back and forth about getting divorced for the past couple of years.
That sounds healthy.
Then early last year.
How long have you been married?
We've been married just about 4 years now.
Oh, boy. I'm not laughing at you, man. I'm just like, oh, man.
Oh, I know.
You married into a mess, huh?
I did.
Oh,
I did
man.
indeed. Still love them, but yeah, it's a mess.
But we still love them. It's like when my dog craps on the floor. It's like, but we still love him. All right, so you married into a mess. They've been trying to think about getting divorced for the last 4 years. So what's up?
Yeah, so then early last year, things got really bad between them. My mother-in-law actually attempted suicide.
Oh, my gosh.
And so then later in the same year, father-in-law told the whole family that he was a sex addict and he was going to go get treatment to help him out. As far as we know, that doesn't include him sleeping with anybody. But then earlier this year, he was told that he has early onset dementia or is in the early stages of dementia. And so things between the two of them started, seemed like they were getting better, but they blew up about a week ago because it turns out he hadn't been changing any of the behaviors that he said he had been. So now they're a lot closer to divorce. And so we're just trying to figure out how to set up some healthy boundaries with her family and with our family. We have one young daughter. We have another daughter due here in a couple days. And so just trying to figure out some good boundaries to put in place with this whole mess.
Dude, homie, you are in it right now, man.
Yep.
So can we just pause and talk about that? Are you doing okay? Because I'm smiling, not whenever things hit the fan and I enter into a crisis situation, I'm just telling you, I smile. It's just like a way I don't know why my body reacts that way. It's more of like oh man, now we're in it. Dude, brother, you're in it.
Yep.
Have you stopped just to take inventory of all that's going on in your particular life?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have. My wife and I, we do really well together talking through these things and handling these issues. And obviously I think it's harder on her being her parents, but
it is because
okay.
It's hard because that's her parents and she's watching them go through this and there's some shame and embarrassment and frustration and she's been living with this her whole life. But also you have a young child, you have a very, very pregnant wife, you got another child on the way, you've got COVID, you've got job stuff, and you've got a hurting wife because her family's a mess. And often I find husbands in the epicenter of those things, and they start coming unraveled, trying to keep everything held together.
Yeah, it feels that way.
Yeah, it feels chaotic. Make sure, please, Dan, make sure you got a couple of buddies you can just go hang out with, okay? That you can get away and just go, man, this is hard, or this sucks, or let's do something. Let's root for the Astros or something. Let's do something, right? Do you have that in your life?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I got some good friends, good family.
Good.
Yeah.
Please double down on that. All right. So you may not know the answer to this. A hallmark of sex addiction is somebody has lots and lots of sex compulsively. Why does your father-in-law think he's a sex addict that doesn't have sex?
Yeah, that's part of the confusion with us. The way he's described it, his sex addiction it's just with online issues.
Okay.
A lot of pornography and a lot of chat rooms and stuff. He's not very clear about it.
Okay.
So I don't know. That's the term he used. He wasn't diagnosed that. He
gave himself a diagnosis.
A legit thing or if that's his like escape from it or an excuse to say, well, I'm an addict. And
okay. All right.
That's the term he chose to use for us.
Okay. And then walk me back to your mother-in-law trying to take her life. What happened there?
Yeah, so that was before he had come out and told us that he was a sex addict, but things were getting really bad between them. They were living in the same house, but on separate floors. So he was in the basement, and there was just a big argument one night. And she had taken a bunch of pills and had texted us that she's sorry she won't be around to see us.
Oh gosh.
But she told us everything that her dad had been doing and shared all his online profiles and stuff. And then just said she loved us. And so we called the police, and we were 4 hours away from her. So we got in the car right away and drove there, and thankfully she was okay. And she seems to be doing a lot better.
Good. I'm glad y'all, oh man, good for y'all. I'm glad y'all called 911 and got involved that way.
Yeah.
This feels like, and again, this is not in reference to the suicide attempt, okay? But this feels like a super volatile, highly manipulative, it feels like a mess, actually. That really, here's my concern, brother. I'm afraid this is going to really negatively impact your new marriage. If it hasn't already. Is it already?
Honestly, I don't think it has. My wife and I, we spend 34 minutes a night reconnecting and talking and processing how we're doing. And so, yeah, we're together. The two of us, we're actually doing really well with all of this.
Awesome. And she's able to get some distance between the chaos and madness that is her family and understand that y'all two have a different relationship moving forward.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So here's, the easiest, most straightforward way to do boundaries in your home, especially with 2 kids and especially with the situation you find yourself in, is not to create boundaries from people, but to create boundaries for yourself. And so if you just create boundaries for they're not allowed to come over anymore, whoever they happens to be, that ends up being really difficult for somebody when that's their mom or that's my best friend. So I hear, hey, your best friend isn't allowed in this house anymore because they're whatever. Well, that feels like a personal attack because that's my friend. And now you're saying something about me. And now we got other layers to this thing. Or your dad's not welcome in this house anymore. He's gross. He creeps me out. He always is disgusting. He doesn't put stuff back. I don't want him in my house. Well, that's cool. I get that. But that's my dad. You know what I mean? So it gets personal. The right way to do boundaries is what kind of ethos do we want in this house? Who do we want in our home? What kind of energy do we want here? Who do we want to be around? And we don't want people who are going to be dishonest in this house. We don't want people who are going to lie about us or to us, or we don't want chaos in this house. We want people who are fun. And so it's a much more, it's an exciting, fun exercise to create the world that you want to have, and then people opt in or out of that thing. Does that make sense? Yeah, I said it. Now I owe the previous caller another $100. Man, I always say, does that make sense? I'm trying to stop. It's like a drug. So I would create boundaries about what you do want in your home, and my guess is your in-laws are not going to fit in those categories. I don't want people around my kids who are going to be dishonest, who self-proclaim they have sex addictions and they don't get help for them. And I don't want you around my daughters. I don't want people in my home that are going to make my wife cry or that are going to make me uncomfortable in my own house, whatever that looks like. And then you backfill who are the people in my life that we're going to have hard conversations with. Are they going to get a divorce?
It's hard to say.
Okay.
I really don't know. He's gone to a divorce attorney multiple times, and he says he has papers ready to go. He's just not using them yet.
Okay.
And so
so that is a cornerstone nonsense triangulation threat bullcrap. And that was my biggest, I just tried to do a bunch of things so I wouldn't say bad words. So
yep.
I need you to tell him next time he does that, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care if you stay married. I don't care if you get divorced. I don't want to hear about that. Or that's a callous way to say that. A more respectful, dignified way is, hey, I really am uncomfortable hearing about whether you're going to divorce my mother-in-law or not. I'll let y'all, please keep that private between y'all two. And same with your wife, if she'll have that conversation. Hey, Dad, I don't want to hear about you threatening to divorce my mom. That's a private marriage matter between y'all two. Please keep that in your personal thing, in your personal world. And I'm going to begin to draw boundaries. I'm not going to get sucked into other people's dramas. Not your job and not your wife's job. And I'm getting all fired up, not at you, at that kind of manipulative nonsense. It's not your job to keep their marriage together. And it's not your job to be a punching bag for that kind of nonsense. He's trying to hit his wife by hitting you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's trying to get a rise out of her by getting a rise out of you. Nonsense. Yeah, dude, I'd cut that crap off, man. Your marriage is too special to get dragged down by that nonsense. Ugh, can't stand that. He's torturing that poor woman and his mother-in-law. And yeah, I'm not getting involved in that stuff. So sit down with your wife, decide, we have 2 kids, we have our own household. What kind of world do we want? And then the ethical right way, the integrous way to do it is to sit down with your father-in-law, sit down with your mother-in-law and say, here's the kind of people we're going to allow into our lives, and here's the kind of people we're not. Every time you come to my house, you talk about this and this and this and this. I'm going to ask you to not bring up your marriage dysfunction in my home anymore. You need to find your own counselor, your own therapist, your own friends. That's not our job. And that will be a hard conversation. If they were able to have that conversation maturely with you or your wife, then that'd be one thing. They are immature. They can't do it. And your mother-in-law needs to get some mental health support in a major way, but you can't make her do that. And if she tells you, I'm going to take my life again, of course it's your responsibility to call on that. But it's her responsibility to take care of herself. Does that make sense? I said it again.
Yeah, that does.
I said it again.
It works. I know what you mean.
So what's your takeaway here, man?
So we had been talking about some boundaries and how to set them up. And the biggest thing was trying to figure out how do we convey that to them. And I think we were going more with the restrictive, you're just not allowed here. But I like what you said about, what kind of home do we want to have? And then going at it from that different perspective and having those hard conversations. Because my wife's big concern is, maintaining those relationships, especially with, going to be having 2 daughters, and she wants them to have a relationship with her dad and with her mom.
That's right.
So trying to figure out how to do that.
Here's where this is really important, okay? Really important. And it goes back to the conversation I was just having. I was just read this email from a caller. No matter how bad our parents treat us, we all have a fantasy that when we have our kids, here's what life with grandkids is going to look like. And so the impetus is almost always felt by the new young parents to concede to grandparents. We've got to go visit them. They are mad that they don't get to see their grandkids enough. So we've got to go do this. We've got to buy these things. Their grandkids are going to wear these kind of clothes. So we got to spend, their grandkids need to ride around in this kind of car. So we got to buy a car that we can't even afford on payments because we can't. It's almost always the young family that feels the need to reach across that aisle. And that's nonsense. So your dad is choosing to be dysfunctional. He is making decisions to not get well, to not go to counseling, to not deal with his challenges. He is choosing to threaten the status of his marriage with his kids. And so it's him that is choosing to not see his granddaughters, not the other way around. And never lose sight of that, okay? Because you will feel so guilty, and that guilt will turn into resentment, especially with somebody who's as immature as your father-in-law. And it's not y'all's responsibility to deal with his or your mother-in-law's dysfunction. It's your responsibility to protect your children and to create a loving, rambunctious, fun, laughter, joy-filled home as much as you can control. And you can control whether an addict who is choosing to lie to his family is in contact with your daughters. And he can choose to either be in contact or not be in contact. Does that make sense? For the third freaking time.
Yeah.
Really watch out for the fantasy of our time together as a small new family. And that will be something, if you have to kill that fantasy, that your father-in-law just chooses to not be a part of your family, that your mother-in-law chooses to not be a part of this new, young, beautiful family. Y'all have to mourn that and grieve it. It stinks, man. It's not supposed to be that way. They're all supposed to hang out together. They're supposed to, come and bring joy and too much candy, and you're supposed to be like, they don't need that much candy, and they're supposed to be like, oh, they're getting candy. They're supposed to sneak away and get donuts. They're supposed to do those things. Your grandparents. And if they opt out of y'all's boundaries, That's heartbreaking. And you can choose sadness because it's sad. But don't choose to compromise your family's values. Don't choose to compromise the integrity of your young family, who and what you want your family to be, who you want around your daughters, to try to duct tape together a myth, a fantasy, a picture you have about what family's supposed to look like, because y'all are not dealing with mature grown-ups. You're dealing with people who are hurting. You're dealing with people who are choosing to not lean into wellness. They're choosing to lean into their dysfunction. It's heartbreaking, man. I hate that for you guys. Stand strong, create the world you want to, and then have those hard conversations. And by the way, Dan, it may be that you say you're not welcome here, but it's going to be an outflow of what we want this to be, not I'm just going to prohibit you from being here. And I hope you get that difference. Man, your kids are lucky to have two parents like you and your wife that are looking out for the culture and the energy in that home. Good for you, good for you, good for you.